third is Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it, makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Rick hangs on! Oh, man, what a play! Deep to right field. Way up there and way out! Second
And welcome back to the Stupid Money Podcast. It is time. It is season preview week. Phillies are slated to play Thursday. I'm not exactly sure they're going to play Thursday, looking more like Friday with the way the weather is. But before we get into that, we do have something to talk about because here we go. Because Jake Cave is gone. Really sad times, for no one. I guess him being the last out of the season last year, like he had to get out of here. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah. I didn't even know what to say. He was kind of like the spring training he had last year was really good. So we're like, oh man, maybe we got like a steal. One of these, minor league or spring training invite guys actually worked out, and then I thought he actually hit the ball hard in that Texas series to open up the year. I'm like, okay, maybe
he did, yeah.
Fluke. And then he sucked. And then he got sent down and he mashed. And it was like, okay, so Jake Cave's just a 35-year-old quad A player that will never really amount to much in the majors, which is fine. You need depth pieces that can maybe hit a home run every once in a while. But yeah, once he was the last out of the season, I couldn't stand to look at him on the roster and everything. I'm surprised that they optioned Dahl to the minor leagues and they're not going with a lefty. But I guess with Pache having no options, you're kind of handcuffed there as far as the types of moves that you can make. And I'd probably rather Pache than Dahl just because of upside. I'll take the upside over the lefty bat. But yeah, goodbye Jake Cave. Good riddance. They traded him for cash considerations, which is like insanely disrespectful. But I don't even care because if you're giving me money or Jake Cave, I will take the money 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, I asked my brother, I'm like, how much do you think Jake Cave is worth in like money value? He's like, well, how much was his contract? I think it was $1 million.
Yeah,
so I don't know. Do they give $1 million? I don't know. That's just funny. Yeah, they're kind of hedging by having both Pache and Rojas. And then I guess the thought process is if Rojas really sucks, Pache will stay up, and then you like Dahl or Cody Clemens, I guess, would be the move. But I mean, that is what it is. Pitching side, Taijuan Walker's going to start the season on the IL because of a shoulder impingement, I think is the word they used.
Damn.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, damn. But at the same time, like, I don't know how good Spencer Turnbull actually is. Like,
yeah, but like
here's the thing. I think, and I'm gonna sound like a little bit of an ass for saying this. This needed to be like season ending for them to do anything about it. Like Jordan Montgomery. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not gonna do anything major about this because like he's kind of hurt. Like this needed to be like torn ACL, Tommy John for them to go get Jordan Montgomery.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with Abel looking pretty good throughout the course of the spring. Abel's what, 22 now, 23?
I think he'll be 23 during this season.
Okay, but so he's 23, really young. You don't want to rush him, but you also drafted him 3 years ago. Like, you can only kind of prod a guy so long. Like, it's time for Mick Abel to be like a serious discussion as far as getting to the major leagues this year. It's like, yeah, I get he's young. That's what happens when you draft high school pitching. Like, it's been 3 years in the minors. Like, it's time for this guy to kind of act like a top 50 prospect and start making his push to the majors.
Yeah, it's time. The Phillies are always on the careful side with prospects, it feels like, but I think in this situation, with the fact that you don't have a lot of quality depth anyway, and now Walker, who it's an argument if he was quality depth or not, because we know how last season went. But Yeah, we'll see how that goes. It looks like it'll be Turnbull. If that goes bad, maybe it's Abel, and
He
then
had a
you're
good
hoping.
spring, Turnbull. I'm good with giving him that fifth starter spot and just
Yeah,
because like realistically, like yeah, Tylen Walker makes a lot of money, and you're probably paying him to realistically, like you're paying him for maybe on some teams number 3 money if those teams don't have a Ranger Suarez still on pre-arbitration stuff, but like realistically last year he was just an innings eater. Like he won a lot of games when the offense hit, but like we saw he didn't pitch in the playoffs. Like he was an $18 million inning eater. It'd be great if you can get off that contract and then be like, yeah, Spencer Turnbull, you're our innings eater. But it's not like, knock on wood, they didn't lose a Wheeler or a Nola where it's like, okay, we are down our horse. Like they lost the number 5. They can get by while he figures out his shoulder. Or if he doesn't, I'm sure that they will be fine.
yeah. I agree, and you kind of brought up about not losing anyone else, so I do want to look at the rosters. Probably going to be on opening day. I think Fangraphs has this. Oh my God, there's so many ads on this site, bro. Um,
They
all
already
right, here we
announced
go.
Rojas
Yeah, so
starting.
this is likely going to be the starting lineup on a opening day. And there's the bench with backup catcher Garrett Stubbs as your only lefty option off the bench. But when you start 4 lefties in your lineup, I guess that's not a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
Pitching staff, there you go. Wheeler announces the opening day starter, Nola 2, Suarez 3. And then they're going to Sanchez, and then they're going back to Wheeler. I'm pretty sure I saw.
Yeah, and
But I
I
don't know if
thought it
that
was
changes if the game is Friday.
yeah, I know. Initially, I was like, "Whoa, that seems like kind of rash." But Wheeler's been cited saying he hates pitching on that extra day of rest, and
Mm-hmm.
with the off day already built in, like I'm fine with getting Zach Wheeler as many starts as possible, as opposed to rushing Spencer, not rushing, but kind of just being like, "Oh, we have a rotation, we have to stay with like the order to get Spencer Turnbull start." Like, give Zach Wheeler as many starts as possible. Do whatever you have to do to make him comfortable. Like Spencer Turnbull, you can wait a day. It'll be okay.
Right. And here is the number 1 bullpen in baseball.
That's a crazy thing to say.
Well, that's what MLB said.
No,
I didn't say it.
No, I know, but like just to hear that out loud after what it was like,
Yeah.
4 years ago is crazy.
Matt Strom extended, by the way. He'll be here next year, and he has what? Is it a mutual option for the year after that?
Yeah, the team vesting option.
Oh, team vesting. Okay. There are some injuries in the bullpen. There you go. So this Kirkring thing is weird to me. He had the flu, and it literally says the flu. And he's been out for what 3.5 weeks now, which is crazy.
It was.
Yeah, he didn't have the flu. He had Ebola or something like that. A crazy flu he had. Like that's wild. So yeah, they're trying to build him back up. So I guess he will swap with. See, there's no long man in here really, unless I guess it's Ortiz.
Yeah, it's gonna be Ortiz.
Yeah, they have this backwards. There's no way Brogdon is a long man.
Is Kobe's not listed anywhere or anything?
No, he is. He was down there on the IL too.
Okay. Oh right.
And Michael Rucker, who I don't really even know who that is. So yeah, it looks like I would say that Kirkring will replace Marte because Brogdon doesn't have options. So I think they'll see how that goes with him, and Ortiz will stay as the long man because it was supposed to be Turnbull. Obviously, that's not going to happen at least for a couple of weeks. So I don't know how soon Kirkring will get thrown up here. I'm going to say it's probably not before April 15th.
Yeah, I think they'll be cautious with him just because he made such a meteoric rise last year. Like he went from single A to pitching in the majors. So there's not a lot of tax on the arm. There's no sense in rushing him. He's never, really had a full major league off season, with this being his second career off season and him being sick for the majority of it. So I think, with how dynamic his arm is, but with how many breaking balls he throws, I think they'll probably be as cautious as possible with bringing him back. And it'll depend. We've seen Brogdon be very good. Marte had some flashes last year. I think overall he was average at best, Marte, but
Mhm.
I'll talk about. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit when we get to record predictions, but just see how the bullpen shakes out in April. It's not an overly difficult portion of the schedule, so hopefully you can get by with guys like Brogdon and Marte eating up innings. Luis Ortiz, Turnbull as the 5, until all your guys get healthy and the schedule starts to get a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull the schedule up here, and of course, it's just all ticket.
Well,
here we go.
I can just give you until the end of April. They open with the Braves, so they got 3 with the Braves, but then they go Cincinnati, who's good. They were exciting last year, but
Yeah.
they were still really young. The pitching's still not great.
Here,
Hunter Green's really good. Abbott was solid last year. Lodol's, you don't really know what you're going to get. And then 3 with the Nationals, 3 with the Cardinals, 4 with the Pirates, 3 with the Rockies and White Sox, who might both win 60 games this year.
Yeah.
4 with the Reds again, 3 with the Padres, and 2 with the Angels, who again, probably 65 wins.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this. Well, I guess we both are at this point. April, and we talked about the last 2 years about this team getting off to really bad starts, and it cost Joe Girardi his job. And as we've seen, maybe he should have been gone anyway. I don't know. Like the year before, I kind of blamed it on he brought in a lot of new guys. It was a rush spring training, with the lockout. The team took a while to gel. I think firing Girardi kind of woke them up in a way. I also think letting guys like Bryson Stott and Bohm play a little more helped. And then last year was just the fact that they knew Bryce was out, Ranger was out, Trey just abysmal start in the new city. Reese, the whole Reese thing, I think really hurt them to open the year. I just think that was a big deflation in the balloon. Those guys come back from the WBC. Wheeler and Nola really struggled with the new pitching rules early in the year. I just feel like all those excuses are gone now. I mean, thankfully, outside of this Walker thing, you did not suffer any crazy injuries, which they had the last few years. Of course, Moniak getting hit in the hand the last spring training game 2 years ago. Now, I don't know how much, he would have ended up actually being something that's that's a great what if, honestly, if he didn't break his hand. I guess we'll never know. But then last year with Reese, obviously, and Ranger, you kind of avoided anything close to serious. Obviously, Kirkering with the flu kind of sucks, but he was your 6th, 7th inning guy to start the season anyway. So it's not like your closer off the bat is gone, even though everyone kind of thinks he could be the guy eventually.
Yeah. Before I talk about that, you brought up Girardi, and you know how much I despise Joe Girardi. Did you hear him spewing nonsense on the broadcast the other day, saying that?
So
he's like, yeah, Stott's really good. He should be playing every day. You don't have to sit him against lefties. Well, that's basically why he got fired, because that's all you did. You decided to play Johan Camargo every day against the lefty because he said Stott couldn't hit lefties. It's been 2 years, so now we have a bit of a sample size, but the fact that he actually said that on a live television broadcast just really bothered me.
Yeah.
But yeah, the chances of them going a full season without a real major injury. I mean, yeah, you could call the Bryce thing last year, obviously, Tommy John, major injury, but he was back by May.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not realistic to assume that they don't have some sort of injury to one of the big guys. I think the roster, Sosa's fine to spot start and stuff, but I think an injury could really alter how they approach the deadline, if it even gets there, if it happens before that, just because as far as depth. The lineup and the roster is kind of built on star power. It's very top heavy. I think Abel is good depth as far as pitching goes. Obviously, you don't know what you're going to get out of a guy who's never pitched in the majors before, but he had a really good spring, and his stuff in general is, we know what Abel kind of brings to the table as far as stuff. So I don't mind him as kind of being that sixth starter option. But as far as offense goes, like your bench is Edmundo Sosa. Obviously, Witt is a big insurance piece. He was an all-star last year. He's been a career very good hitter. He had a great spring. I think he's hitting like 390 in the spring, depending on what he did today. Going into today, he was hitting 390. So like, I'm excited to have him as a bench piece and not have to, rely on Jake Cave or somebody like that we've had to in the last few years. But overall depth in the field, depending on the position, like it's not incredible. It's really inconsistent. So the injury bug kind of catching up to them is something that I'm definitely worried about. But, it's tough to speculate what something like that could look like when the time comes, because you don't really know how it's going to happen, if it's going to happen, and who it's really going to affect.
Yeah, and, a big part of it is, I know we talked about Abel, but the majority of the Phillies' top prospects are like teenagers. They're not guys that can just come up if there's a problem.
That spring break game, it was like Carlos De La Cruz and then a bunch of 18-year-olds.
Like your best catcher in your organization is 17. Your best third baseman is 19. Your best shortstop is 18? Like outside of Abel with Painter out for the year, like you don't have a lot of young pitching options, because isn't he out too? I think he's hurt.
I think so. Clausen had a good spring. I doubt I don't think his stuff is, the fastball is definitely, better than Kerkring's, but as far as the slider goes, which was kind of what skyrocketed Kerkring last year, you're not really going to see that. I'd be surprised if you see that kind of rise from George Clausen this year. So, you're not getting that bullpen reinforcement that you kind of got last year with your young guys.
Yeah, and I also think the reason they kept Pache is, I know Marsh could play center, but if something happens to like one of Pache or Rojas, like Justin Crawford, it's probably your best backup option in center field, and he's 19. So if you got rid of Pache, you're really thin at center field then in the system, and I think that's another reason why he got the nod over Cave.
Yeah, for sure. And like Marsh, he can play center. He's good in center, but like he was a Gold Glove finalist and left when we traded for him last year, and 2 years ago even. He was suspect at times in center. Like he just doesn't get great reads on balls sometimes in center field. He's really fast, so he can run balls down and kind of make up for it if it's a fly ball. But those kind of atom balls with line drives, he doesn't always read particularly well, and sometimes his angles aren't great. So while he's above average in center, he's elite in left. So I think kind of having Pache and Rojas have the same profile, it is worth having both of them get a roster spot, just because if one of them gets hurt, you're still substituting, elite defense in center and elite defense in left with above average to great defense in center and still elite defense in left.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so let's dig into this. I talked about all the issues Phillies had early in the year last year. They still went 90-72, went to Game 7 of the NLCS, should have won that, should have been back in the World Series, as we know. So I guess let's start with a record prediction, which in part will, I guess, give a where they finish in the division prediction, and then we'll get into the playoffs, and then we'll talk about some players after that. So I'll let you go first on the record.
All right, the record, I think I'm definitely higher than the sports books. I think the line's 90.5.
Yeah, and also let me get this other, that what is it, that Pacoda or whatever drops those projections has them at 85.
Yeah,
like
I
okay.
am. we've seen them the last 2 years struggle in, up until Memorial Day, really. I think they were 22 and 29 at some point the last 2 years. And they kind of turned up in the summer. It's so tough to kind of predict what the season looks like because, I talked about it last year on our preseason pod that September last year was going to be grueling and that the Padres and Mets were both awful.
Right,
and that was
right.
like 10 of the September games. So it's tough to, predict what those later months will look like after the deadline, especially. But with the easiest stretch of their season being in April, where they've had those bad periods the last 2 years, I'm pretty high on what they'll look like. The deadline you expect to be a contender, so you can add some reinforcements there and teams get worse. So I have them at 95 and 67. I think last year, 90 games, you missed Bryce for the majority of the first 2 months, and then he didn't hit like more than 5 home runs until August. Turner was about as good as you and I up until August. The injuries was definitely beneficial as far as, getting to 90 wins. But I think with the easy stretch in April, kind of allowing them to settle into the season, hopefully allowing them to settle into the season, I'm pretty high on them, 95 and 67. I think they can definitely compete with the Braves for the division, but I think they'll still finish second. I think the Braves just have too many guys. So I think we'll get the first wild card again, have a home playoff series in the wild card. But I don't think the Marlins will be, as good. So I think we'll pick up some games there in the division. We always struggle with them, but I think the Marlins, the Nationals, and the Mets are going to be pretty bad. So it'll really just
the Mets
be us
have
and the
no
Braves.
pitching. Yeah.
Yeah.
Their offense isn't that bad, but they have 0 starting pitching right now.
Yeah, Severino had a good spring, but I'm not going to really, throw all my eggs in the Luis Severino basket.
He'd be the 4 here, so.
Yeah. So the division should be, fairly. We always seem to struggle with the lesser division teams and the Mets. So I can only imagine what a lesser Mets team will be like as far as that season series. Yeah. But it should really just be the Braves and us in the division, and it'll be interesting to see how we kind of stack up against them. I know the last 2 years we've played them relatively even in the regular season. I think we won the season series against them last year and then beat them in the playoffs the last 2 years. I don't know if that'll happen again. They added Chris Sale, and it always seems like where we kind of took advantage against them in the playoffs was for as good as their lineup is, that third game in that series was always, a Charlie Morton, but he goes one time through the lineup, or, Bryce Elder last year, they started AJ Smith-Shaver, however you say his name, against us in one of those games, whereas we had, Nola, Wheeler, Ranger, and then off day or something, and we could kind of just reset those guys. So we kind of always outclassed them in the pitching there, but Chris Sale adds that different element. He's a power lefty, which our lineup always seems to kind of, struggle against. I was at the game last year and Chris Sale had like 12 strikeouts against us with the Red Sox. So I don't know how the playoffs would go against the Braves this year. I'd probably lean some sort of NLDS or NLCS loss to the Braves, depending on we'd get they'd have to be the 2 seed to playoffs, right? If we're the first wild card.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're better than the Dodgers, so I'd say we'd play the Dodgers in the first round, and unless their pitching gets miraculously healthy, I think we beat the Dodgers. So I'll say NLCS loss to the Braves in the playoffs.
All right. Well, see, I was right around the same win total. I'm gonna go 90. You went at 95, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go 96. I'm gonna take 6 more from last year, and unfortunately, I think they finished like 2 games behind the Braves, not 14 like it was last year or whatever it was. Yeah.
No, I think the division will actually be a race this year.
I do too. I think it'll actually be interesting. I feel like it's so important to win the division this year for the sense that you kind of would only have to play or yeah, you'd only have to play one of the Dodgers and the Braves in the playoffs then, because you would think if the Phillies win the division, the Braves would be the number one wild card, and Dodgers probably have a better record than the Phillies. So that, although, now that I think about it, that West, now that this Snell's on the Giants, like I don't know if the Dodgers win like 105 games.
No, I think we saw they played 2 games in Korea last week
Yeah.
with this,
Yeah.
and
Last week, I guess.
yeah, the offense is gonna mash, but like they lost a 15-11 game to like a Padres team that has good players like Machado obviously, and Bogarts is really good, and like I hate Jake Cronenworth, but he had a decent series.
Yeah.
But like Bueller's hurt. He'll be back at some point, I think. But like, I don't know. Yamamoto got rocked, so and he had a horrible spring, so you don't really know what that's gonna look like. Like, I'm sure he'll settle in because he's got pedigree in Japan, and he's proven to have good stuff. We'll just have to see how it translates to the majors. But like, you don't really know what that pitching rotation is gonna bring. So if they didn't win, if they won like 98 or 99 and didn't even get to 100, I wouldn't be fully shocked.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. So playoffs. I picked them to lose to the Braves in the playoffs last year, and I'm not going to do it again. They somehow just have the Braves number in the playoffs. I worry about the Dodgers in the NLCS if that was the case, but let me think about this. I think it's so bad if I picked them to win the World Series, but I feel like I have to, because to me it kind of feels like a now or never type thing, and I'm hoping maybe they go a little crazy at the deadline. You get a Clase in here to close or something, and the starting pitching thing is interesting because all of a sudden you thought guys like Burns and Cease were going to be there at the deadline, and then they left. They're off the market the last week before the regular season starts, pretty much. So like starting pitching at the deadline, I don't think is going to be as nuts as we thought it was originally, unless the Mariners have a really bad season and they start trying to unload a couple of those guys and get pieces back. But that would cost the Phillies a lot, because those Mariners dudes, they're under control and they're good. Like their value, they have some of the highest values in baseball right now. But I don't see them like being that bad. I think that roster's just too young good for that to happen. But anyway, so that a little concerns me, unless Mick Abel just goes on some like Linsanity run. That'd be nice. I don't know how many he's gonna be on an innings limit, so I don't know. But
yeah, we'll probably throw maybe like a 150 max.
Yeah. Hot take: no team in the AL scares me. I feel like the NL wins World Series this year. I feel like the Yankees are not as good, and we've talked about this. I don't think the Yankees are as good as they're going to hyped up to be. To me, Baltimore still too young. Like, I don't know how they would perform in a World Series. I think they're still a couple years away.
I don't think Baltimore has enough arms. They got Corbin Burns, but like the rest of their rotation, I have to see. Grayson Rodriguez had a good second half. I have to see him do it again because he was horrible the first half. So
yeah. And Craig Kimbrell's their closer. So
until Bautista is probably out for the year.
I think he is, at least the first half, but I think it's most of the year, if not all of it. No one in that Central Division. Yeah, there's some exciting teams like the Royals and Tigers are kind of exciting. They're not going to win the World Series. The West, like, I'm a big proponent of back-to-backs are so hard. So I just like automatically write off the Rangers because it's just
that lineup's going to mash though.
It is, but they have like no starting pitching right now. And I just I say this all the time with every sport. It is so hard to get everything to break right for you to go back to back in sports. Like how long those seasons are and everything, and you have to survive the season, then you got to survive the playoffs, and you got to get lucky, in between. The Astros, I don't know. I feel like they're starting to leak a little oil. Starting to feel like the Warriors, right about now, but I don't know.
Here's the thing about the Astros: if you get into a playoff series with them, the game quite literally becomes like a 4 inning game.
Yeah, the
Because
bullpen is deep.
if they start rolling out like Brian Abreu, whoever else, Ryan Presley and Josh Hader, like yeah, good luck.
Yeah, that's gonna be an issue. The Mariners like scare me because of that pitching staff, but their
Mhm.
offense is not good. Like I just don't know if they'd hit. Like they'd have to win every game like 3-2, and I just don't know how realistic that is in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So to me, one of the Braves, Phillies, and Dodgers is winning the World Series. I fully believe that. I was wrong last year because maybe I wasn't wrong because that whatever the hell the Diamondbacks did in the last 5 games of that series was ridiculous. I thought the winner of the Braves Phillies series was going to win the World Series last year. I still think I might have been right, but I don't know. I feel like this is the year. Like I'm just at the point where I think there's a lot of now or never in the minds of those guys. You know, Harper, Real Muto is close to the end here. We don't, Schwarber's getting up there. He's already won. I know he didn't play much in that series. I know Turner's won, but maybe once another. Castellanos, it's getting close to time. Wheeler, what, 34 going to be?
Yeah.
I just feel like for a lot of these guys that they have that now or never type feel. And, John Middleton too, he's an older guy. So I just feel like, an owner that's going to be aggressive. Dave Dombrowski's an older guy. I just feel like if all these guys want to win, it's got to be now. I think they'll be aggressive at the deadline. If they could get out of that Taiwan Walker shit, I guarantee you Montgomery would be here. So I never have done this in the history of this podcast, dating way back to when Sean and I did it for the COVID year. We would just always be lucky to predict them to make the playoffs. So I'm going to go if they win the World Series this year because I don't think there's another year where I'm going to feel comfortable predicting that. So I'm going with it this year.
Yeah, I agree with you in the sense that the AL is the Astros and everyone else, in my opinion. I know we kind of said that Texas didn't have the horses to pitch last year, and then Eovaldi showed up in the playoffs,
and they got a whole new rotation at the deadline.
Yeah, so like so much can change in the next 5 months up until the deadline, but in my opinion, it's the Astros and everyone else in the West, and then yeah, I'm with you that the World Series winner will be one of the Phillies, the Braves, or the Dodgers.
Yeah, I am of that belief. And I guess we'll see how it goes. I'm really interested to see how the trade deadline goes this year because I think it's going to be critical. The Phillies do need to add a little bit to get up to that Brave Dodger level. I don't think it'll really be a hitter unless something bad happens to someone. So I think we're looking at a closer and maybe like a number 3 starter would be what they try to do. But that's that. Let's get to some player awards. So last year I was kind of right because I had Ranger Suarez to win the Gold Glove, but it was Wheeler who won it. So that I was almost right on that one, but I'm going to shy away from that. I'm going to go, I think Stott wins the Gold Glove this year. I think that there's enough hype around him. We're going to see because there's some decent second basemen, but I'm going to go with Stott to win the Gold Glove. And, I want to pick Rojas. I just don't think he's going to play enough. Like,
yeah, you it's tough to go with Rojas because like he led the league in defensive runs saved by a very wide margin, but like
yeah,
is he gonna hit 180 and get sent down by May?
Yeah, I don't see that. I'm gonna take bounce back JT. Give me him as a Silver Slugger, and I'll take Trey as one. I don't think Bryce gets there because there's just so many offensive first basemen in the NL now.
Yeah.
And my bold one is I'm going to take Wheeler as a Cy Young because he looks locked in. I think the contract, he's comfortable. I feel like this is another like now or never type thing. I think this is the year for him to do it if he's going to do it. He's second in odds right now to Strider. I'm going to take him to win the Cy Young. So those are kind of my award things.
Yeah. Gold Glove. Dude, this is going to be ballsy, but I saw enough last year. I'm going to go Harper Gold Glove. I thought he's such an athlete
Yeah.
that he can move around at first base. I think we didn't see it much last year as far as his ability to kind of pick the ball. So I think that'll be a pretty big indicator. But he's got enough range playing outfield. He just needs to know when to use it and not run for every ground ball that's hit on that side of the second base bag. But
yeah, that's the biggest thing I feel like you need to improve on.
Yeah, I'll go Harper Gold Glove because he's athletic enough that I think he can make some pretty crazy plays that you don't see a lot of first basemen make. Bounce back, I'm gonna go Nola. I think
I like
we
that.
kind of see his numbers in the even years versus the odd years. I think even though they bumped the clock down a little bit, I think he's comfortable enough and he has a full off season to, okay, this is what I looked like last year and this is how I need to improve, or this is what I have to do to get used to it. They made a lot of tanks in the second half of the season, especially towards the playoffs, that seemed to really help him just as far as pitching in general, not necessarily around the clock. But yeah, I think, a lot of people talked about that was one of the biggest reasons why they didn't, the free agency thing was so nerve-wracking with Nola, because the one team that we heard that was in on him so much was Atlanta, and it's like, wow, we just, Caleb Cotham just worked with him the entire second half, and we kind of got vintage Nola back as far as what he looks like, being really good. And then we're just going to let him walk to, the division rival that has been winning the division and, is really just another ace away from kind of just dominating the league. They had like the best offense in history. Now add Aaron Nola to that on top of all their young guys in contracts. So I'm going to go Nola bounce back, year off of the rule change. I'm going to go Trey Silver Slugger like you. I'm going to go Schwarber Silver Slugger at DH.
I thought about that one. Yeah, Azuna is such a wild card to me. I don't know.
Not even that. Now that Ohtani's in the NL, they're going to be
like, well, he's going to get suspended, so.
No matter what Ohtani does, they're going to be like, yeah, award.
I forgot about that.
I don't know. I think, Schwarber might hit 50 again, get over, or hit 50, outpace Ohtani. Yeah, I'll go Schwarber and Turner, Silver Sluggers. And what was the last? Oh, you stole it. I was going to go Wheeler Cy Young too. I've seen so many pitching ninja videos of that splitter. It's going to be kind of a battle of what new pitch gets the guy the Cy Young between Strider's curveball and Wheeler's splitter. But, it's so interesting. Kind of Strider fascinates me because he's really just like now a 3-pitch pitcher, but it was kind of like the DeGrom mold, fastball, slider, good luck. And now that curveball, but he's a thrower to me. I don't know how much of a pitcher he is. Like Wheeler, I feel like has so many different ways to get guys out. Like even when he had dead arm and he was, not the 97, 98 Wheeler and he was 94, 95, he was almost more dominant just because it's like, okay, now I have to locate and I can't just use power. So I'm going to go Wheeler Cy Young and bold. I think Wheeler wins the Cy Young and Nola's also top 5.
I could see that. Speaking of bold, I was listening to WIP today. This guy said Alec Boehm top 7 in MVP voting.
Hey, I'd be down. A lot would have to go right, or wrong.
I feel like a lot of people would have to get hurt.
If Boehm's top 7 in MVP, who died?
Yeah, because I'm thinking about it. On his own team, there's 3 guys I think I would take over him right off the bat. Obviously
in the lineup.
Yeah.
And then I'd take Wheeler and Nola.
Yeah, and then I look at Atlanta and half the team there, half the Dodgers. The 2 guys on the Cardinals still aren't that bad.
Machado.
I mean, Lindor, Machado, Bogarts. Like, I don't know where that could come from. Like, not even win it. I'm talking about getting the top 7 because that's I did want to talk about Alec Boehm though.
Didn't Real Mito have a vote last year?
I don't know about last year. The year before, I think he had a few.
Okay, I knew he in the last 2 years. I know he had at least one.
There were a couple. since he's been here, I think there's been 2 seasons where he finished in the top 15.
Yeah.
I think it might have been 19 and 22 or 21. I don't know. It's one of those. I know one was 19. I can't remember what the other one was. But Bohm is one of my over-under questions I was going to ask you. I have a couple. Let's start with Bohm, though. 25 home runs.
Under.
So is that, 20 last year exactly?
Yeah. For him to get a contract extension or be in this team's future at all, I think he has to go over.
Yeah.
I think he's going to go under. I just don't think he's that hitter. We can talk about the 10 pounds of muscle and everything. He's a gap-to-gap hitter. He's not going over the wall. He will hit singles and doubles the opposite field. He'll get you 100 RBIs. He will hit 300 with runners in scoring position, which is all great. But, yeah, he's just not a 25 home run guy. I think we all have to accept that and stop expecting every, belt-high fastball for Bohm to go out, because that's just not who he profiles to as a hitter.
Yeah, he said that WIP interviewed him when they were down there last week, and he was pretty much like, I could try to hit home runs, but like I don't, because I'm fine with taking stuff the other way and everything that he was trying to say. I don't know. He was more or less saying like, I'll take the home run if it's given to me, but I'm not looking for it.
And that's fine. When you have,
yeah.
Schwarber, Harper, Turner, and Castellanos, like, you don't need every single, you don't need to be the Braves offense last year to be a team that can win the World Series. Like, they had that last year and didn't win the World Series. Like, yeah, Texas.
They won one playoff game.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, playoffs are very dependent on, home runs and power pitching, but home runs are such a streaky, item. We saw it with Castellanos. He hit 6 home runs or whatever, 4 home runs, and he was, Reggie Jackson numbers. And then against the Diamondbacks, he went 1 for 80. It's just such a streaky thing that I'd almost, with how many home run dependent guys we have in the lineup, yes, I'd love if Bohm hit 25. I'd love if he hit 30. I'd even love if he hit 20 again. I will be ecstatic if he also hits 300 with runners in scoring position, like he's shown he can throughout his career.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go. Let's talk about Ranger Suarez this year. His 3.6 ERA.
If he's healthy the entire year, under. I'd probably put him at a 3.4.
Okay.
Because the biggest thing with Ranger is not even so much him. He was rusty at the start of the season last year, but we kind of talked about it. He was hurt. He didn't really get a spring training, or whether it was hurt or the visa thing or whatever. Or he got hurt at the World Baseball Classic.
It was his forearm or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't remember what it was, but
he's such a sinker ball pitcher that defense makes up so much of his game. So yeah, if Stott can play the Gold Glove defense that he's shown he can, that'll be a huge help. I think Harper being the full-time first baseman will help a lot. Turner's talked about it a lot, and I think Bo has talked about it too, how much better Turner looks in the infield this year.
mm-hmm.
No secret, he was very bad last year defensively. So, improvement for him will help Ranger out a ton. And with Harper being at first full-time, allowing Bohm to just stick at third and really kind of lock in over there. He's shown improvements every year he's been in the majors. So I think the infield defense being better and concrete this year, knock on wood, last year with the Hoskins injury, the infield was up in the air who's going to play first. You didn't really know what Bohm was going to look like, so you kind of anticipated that a little bit of a revolving door there. With it being concrete, I think that'll help Ranger a lot. All those guys comfortable playing better defense, and yeah, I'd say under 3.6.
All right. Whit Merrifield over 99 games started.
Started?
Yeah.
I was. If you asked me yesterday,
mm-hmm.
now if you asked me at noon today, I would have said over. But driving home from work and seeing that Rojas was already announced as the starting center fielder, I'm going to go under just because that tells me Marsh will be ready. The injury wasn't as bad to him as we thought because, I saw the spring training lineup today with Merrifield in left and Marsh in center.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that, the whole debate's been Rojas or Pache, but that might be the opening day lineup. But I'm going to say under. I think, they kind of got him knowing he'd be used sporadically. I think he might start 100 games, but I think realistically it's probably somewhere in the 90 to 95 range, barring injury, of course. But I think if everything just goes, according to plan, they'll get him in there maybe 1 or 2 games a series, but I don't think he'll get over 100.
Yeah, I'm interested. Obviously, don't want Bryce Harper to get hurt, but between this back thing that just came up and everything
Yeah.
else he's dealt with, there's a realistic chance he does spend some time on the IL this year. With JK no longer here, the backup first baseman is technically Bohm. Merrifield, I don't think's played a lot of third, so I'm just interested. Like, if Harper was to go down and they move Bohm to first, because there's not really another backup first baseman on this roster. You think Merrifield's playing third, or is it going to be Sosa? I mean, obviously Merrifield's the way better hitter.
Yeah, I just don't know how many, if any, games he has at third base in his career. So I don't know how comfortable I don't even know if he's played there at all this spring.
They might just bring up Cody Clemens and let Bohm stay at first, or third.
Obviously, you don't want to move Stott off second, but Stott played a lot of games or some games at third early in his career with the Girardi tenure. But yeah, I wouldn't touch Stott at second, so I don't think they'd put Merrifield at third.
Yeah, I didn't think that. So this last one now is a little more open-ended, but who do you think leads the team in saves?
Saves? I wouldn't be surprised if it was Hoffman. Okay. Or I'm gonna say Sir Anthony. I think they will use Hoffman, Alvarado like they used Sir Anthony and Alvarado in the playoffs, and they will designate Sir Anthony as the closer because he's done it before. Years ago when he first came up with us, but he has that closer experience. You kind of let your best righty and best lefty be used sporadically when matchups present itself, and you let a guy back there who could kind of, find himself a bit. Last year it was a struggle for him throughout the course of the regular season. He kind of dialed it in the playoffs in lower leverage situations, but he's healthy for once, and he's had that full off season. And yeah, I think Sir Anthony will lead the league in saves, or lead the team in saves.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that the guy that ends up leading this team in saves is not on the roster right now. I think they're gonna look at this at the deadline and realize they need a serious closer. So because they like all these guys in these spots, throughout the game when they need them in emergency situations, and I just think they're gonna maybe struggle to find that constant. And I know Devin Williams is going to be out with 3 months, which I feel like he was a guy I was looking at because that Brewers team just weird right now, probably going to sell off some more guys. But I feel like they're going to find a closer at the deadline instead. I just feel like that's something they're going to go with. Now, Ryan Kerkering, if he's to the point where they trust him, he gets back up here, maybe they'd move Dominguez or Hoffman in the closer's role because you have another righty you trust. But as of right now, I don't think the guy's on the roster. I think they're going to get someone the middle of July, and from then till the end of the season, it's going to be what they roll with. They've kind of done it the past few trade deadlines before they got Kimbrel. So I'm gonna go with that. That's a weird one. That's like my weird one for this season. I'm gonna go there.
we've seen how important the closer is, especially in the playoffs. We've been doing a good job with kind of having it by committee, but 2 years ago in the World Series, Ryan Presley just completely neutralized any chance we had once the ninth inning started. And then last year, the two teams in the World Series, Jose Leclerc some games was going 3 inning saves for the Rangers, and we couldn't sniff Paul Sewald. So, the having that stabilized closer at the back half of your bullpen, where it kind of just gives you structure. Where last year against the Diamondbacks, they had that plan. They were going with Kevin Ginkel or whatever his name is right into Sewald, whereas we'd like to do somebody into a Hoffman or an Alvarado, but there were games where we had used Hoffman in the third inning because of a jam, and it's like, oh well, now we got to bring in Craig Kimbrell in the ninth, and there goes the lead against the Diamondbacks in back-to-back days. So having that closer that you can really trust, that isn't a 39-year-old Craig Kimbrell, having a guy with elite stuff, still not even in the prime of his career, but having that out pitch. Sewald by no means is this overpowering guy, but he's a funky arm slot, has a slider. It's really tough to pick up, and that's that. So, Kirkring, I could see being that, but also Emmanuel Clase's 101-mile-an-hour cutter is a very nice luxury to have. Or the Devin Williams airbender, if he's healthy, is, that signature pitch that I feel like most closers have.
Yeah, I agree. So that is going to do it for the season preview. We'll see. Season starts Thursday, Friday. I still think it's going to be Friday, but I'm going to try to come back every 7 to 10 games-ish if we can to do one of these throughout the season. Of course, if any crazy news happens, that will alter that. But that's the plan for right now. So Phillies take on the Braves sometime later this week. Third out of the last 5 they're starting against Atlanta. 19.
Yeah,
20.
I'm already, preemptively mad because the last 3 teams they were scheduled to start won the World Series. So
yeah,
I'm already dreading the parade in Atlanta.
Yeah, I know. I was going to bring that up, actually. So 21, they started the season with the Braves. The Braves won the World Series. In 22, they were supposed to start the year with the Astros, but the lockout pushed that to actually the last series of the season. And then last year, obviously, they started with the Rangers. So, yeah, that's not ideal, I guess. But they technically started that one year with the A's, so the Braves are going to be like the A's this year.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it will be. All right, so that's going to do it for this one, and we will see you sometime, I don't know, April 15th, something like that. We'll see you then.